In 1879, I drew a map as a boy, imagining a city that didn't exist. Decades later, those streets appeared exactly as I'd sketched them. How did my childhood dreams shape a real city? Hit that subscribe button, and let's uncover this mystery together. I was just a boy in 1879, living in a small, dusty town surrounded by endless fields. My name was Elias, and I spent my days sketching in a tattered notebook. The world around me felt small, confined, and I longed for something bigger. I'd sit under the old oak tree, pencil in hand, dreaming of a grand city. My map wasn't just lines on paper, it was a vision. Streets curved in my mind, wide boulevards lined with shops and homes. I imagined people bustling, carriages rolling, and life thriving in a place I created. Each stroke of my pencil felt like I was building something real. The townsfolk thought I was odd, always lost in my sketches. Elias, stop dreaming, they'd say, but I couldn't. My map grew detailed, parks, bridges, even a town square with a fountain. I didn't know why I drew it. It just felt important. By the time I finished, my map was a sprawling masterpiece. I tucked it away, hoping one day it might mean something. My family lived in a modest wooden house, barely holding up against the wind. We were farmers, tied to the land, but I wasn't like them. While my brothers plowed fields, I'd sneak away to draw. My map became my escape, a world where I wasn't just a farmer's son. I named the streets after things I loved: Willow Lane, Starlight Avenue. Each name carried a piece of me, a hope for something beyond the fields. I'd lie awake at night, imagining walking those streets. The map wasn't just a drawing, it was my heart on paper. I showed it to my mother once, and she smiled softly. "It's beautiful, Elias," she said, but I saw doubt in her eyes. No one believed a boy's sketch could matter. Still, I kept it hidden under my bed, safe from prying eyes. Something inside me whispered that this map was special. The town was called Harrow, a place forgotten by progress in 1879. It had one dirt road, a general store, and a church with peeling paint. I'd watch travelers pass through, their stories of far-off cities fueling my imagination. My map grew from those tales: tall buildings, wide plazas, and bustling markets. I'd sketch late into the night, my candle burning low. Every line was deliberate, every street placed with care. I didn't know why, but I felt the map had a purpose. I'd dream of it coming to life, of people living in my city. My friends laughed when I told them about it. "Harrow will always be Harrow," they'd say. But I saw something more, a future no one else could see. I carried that map everywhere, folded in my pocket. It was my secret, my promise to myself. One day, a stranger came to town, a surveyor in a crisp suit. He was mapping the region for some distant government office. I was shy but curious, so I showed him my map. His eyes widened as he traced the lines with his finger. "This is remarkable," he said, his voice serious. He asked to borrow it, and I hesitated but agreed. Days later, he returned it, saying he'd shown it to his colleagues. They thought it was a child's fantasy, nothing more. I felt a sting of disappointment, but I wasn't surprised. My map went back under my bed, gathering dust. The surveyor left, and life in Harrow went on as it always had. But his words stuck with me. Remarkable. I held on to that, even if no one else did. Years passed, and I grew up, leaving my boyhood dreams behind. I worked the fields, married, and started a family. My map stayed hidden, a relic of a time when I believed I could change the world. Harrow didn't change much, still small, still quiet. But I'd catch myself thinking about those streets I'd drawn. Sometimes, I'd pull out the map and stare at it. The paper was yellowed, the lines faded, but it still felt alive. My wife, Clara, would tease me about it. "Still dreaming of your city, Elias?" she'd say. I'd smile and tuck it away again. Life moved forward, but a part of me stayed tied to that map. I didn't know why it mattered so much. Maybe it was just a piece of my childhood I couldn't let go. In 1895, rumors spread that a railroad company was eyeing Harrow. They wanted to build a line through our town, bringing trade and people. The townsfolk were excited, but I felt something deeper. I dusted off my map and looked at it with new eyes. The streets I'd drawn could handle a railroad, I thought. I imagined stations, markets, and homes springing up along my lines. I didn't dare tell anyone. It sounded foolish, even to me. But I started sketching again, refining my old map. I added new details, like a depot and a school. The railroad news made my childhood dream feel closer. I began to wonder if my map could guide Harrow's growth. It was a wild thought, but it wouldn't leave me. The railroad came in 1897, and with it change. Harrow grew, new faces, new buildings, new noise. I was older now, but my map still called to me. One day, a town meeting was held to plan Harrow's expansion. I brought my map, my hands shaking as I unrolled it. The room went quiet as I explained my vision. Some laughed, others stared in curiosity. The mayor, a gruff man named Thompson, took a long look. "This is just a boy's drawing," he said, but he kept it. Days later, he called me to his office. "Your streets make sense," he admitted. "We're using some of them." My heart raced. I couldn't believe it. My map, my dream, was shaping Harrow. By 1900, Harrow was transforming. New streets were laid, and I walked them in disbelief. Willow Lane was real, its cobblestones gleaming under the sun. Starlight Avenue stretched toward the horizon, just as I'd drawn it. People moved in, shops opened, and the town square I'd imagined took shape. I'd stand there, watching life unfold on streets I created. No one knew the map's full story, only Clara and the mayor. I didn't need credit. Seeing my vision come alive was enough. The fountain in the square sprayed water, just like in my sketch. I felt a strange mix of pride and wonder. How had a boy's drawing become real? I didn't have answers, only gratitude. The years rolled on, and Harrow became a small city. My map was framed in the town hall, a curiosity for visitors. People called it Elias's map, though I never sought fame. I'd walk the streets, now filled with life, and feel a quiet joy. My children grew up playing on those streets, unaware their father had dreamed them. Clara would hold my hand and say, "You did this, Elias." I'd shake my head, unsure how it happened. The map felt like a gift, not just from me, but from something bigger. I started to believe it wasn't just chance. Maybe my dreams had tapped into something, a plan for Harrow's future. I couldn't explain it, but I felt it. By 1910, Harrow was unrecognizable from the dusty town of my childhood. The railroad brought wealth, and my streets held strong. I was older, my hair graying, but I'd walk Starlight Avenue every evening. People nodded to me, some knowing my story, others not. The map was now a legend, a tale told to newcomers. "A boy drew this city," they'd say, half believing it. I'd smile and keep walking, my heart full. My map had done more than I ever imagined. It wasn't just streets, it was a legacy. I wondered if other boys were out there, sketching their dreams. I hoped they'd hold on to them, like I did. My map taught me that even a child's dream can change the world. As Harrow grew, so did the stories about my map. People started saying it was magic, that I'd seen the future. I laughed off the rumors, but sometimes I wondered, how had my streets matched Harrow's growth so perfectly? I'd drawn them without knowing what a city needed. Yet the layouts worked, traffic flowed, neighborhoods thrived. I'd sit by the fountain, watching children play, and think back to 1879. That boy under the oak tree didn't know what he was starting. I kept my old notebook, its pages brittle now. Flipping through it, I saw sketches beyond the map, bridges, homes, even a theater. Some of those were built, too. The townsfolk called it coincidence, but I wasn't so sure. My map felt like a seed, planted long ago. One day, a young reporter came to interview me. He'd heard about Elias's map and wanted the truth. I told him about 1879, the oak tree, and my dreams. He scribbled furiously, his eyes wide with excitement. "Did you know it would happen?" he asked. I shook my head. I hadn't known anything. I just drew what felt right. He published the story, and soon, letters arrived from other towns. People wanted to see my map, to learn from it. I was flattered but uneasy. My map wasn't a blueprint. It was just a boy's imagination. Still, I shared copies, hoping it might inspire others. The reporter's article spread, and Harrow became known as the Map City. In 1915, a university professor visited Harrow to study my map. He was a serious man, with glasses and a thick notebook. He measured the streets, compared them to my drawing, and shook his head in disbelief. "This defies logic," he said. "Your map predicted urban planning principles." I didn't understand half his words, but I listened. He said my streets followed patterns used in modern cities. I shrugged. I was just a boy with a pencil. He spent weeks in Harrow, writing a paper about my map. It was published in some academic journal, but I never read it. To me, the map was still just my dream. The professor left, calling me a visionary. I didn't feel like one. Clara passed away in 1918, and I felt the weight of her absence. She'd been my biggest supporter, always believing in my map. I'd walk the streets alone now, missing her hand in mine. The city kept growing, but I felt detached. My children were grown, living their own lives. I'd sit in the town square, staring at the fountain. It was the heart of my map, the first thing I'd drawn. I wondered what Clara would say now. "You did this, Elias." Her voice echoed in my mind. I started sketching again. Not maps, but small drawings of Harrow. It kept me close to her, to the boy I'd been. The map had given me purpose, even in grief. By 1920, Harrow was a bustling hub, with factories and schools. My map was now in a museum, behind glass. Visitors came from miles away to see it. I'd stand nearby, listening to their whispers. "A boy drew this," they'd say, amazed. I didn't feel like a hero, just a man who dreamed big. My grandchildren loved the story, begging me to tell it again. I'd pull out my old notebook and show them the faded lines. Their eyes sparkled, just like mine had in 1879. I told them to keep dreaming, to draw their own maps. "You never know what they'll become," I'd say. The map wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to Harrow. One night, I had a dream about the oak tree from my childhood. I was a boy again, sketching my map. The streets glowed, like they were alive. I woke with a start, my heart racing. It felt like a message, though I didn't know from who. I started visiting schools, sharing my story with children. I'd show them my notebook and tell them about 1879. "Your dreams matter," I'd say, hoping they'd believe me. Some kids started drawing their own maps, inspired by mine. I'd smile seeing myself in them. Harrow streets were proof that imagination could shape reality. I wanted those children to know it, too. My map was a lesson, not just a relic. In 1925, Harrow held a festival to celebrate its growth. They invited me to speak, calling me the father of the city. I was nervous and used to attention. Standing in the town square, I told the crowd about my map. I spoke of the boy who dreamed under an oak tree. I told them how Harrow became those dreams. The crowd cheered, and I felt tears in my eyes. My grandchildren were there, beaming with pride. I didn't feel like a hero, but I felt alive. The map had come full circle, from my notebook to this moment. I thanked the crowd and stepped down, my heart full. Harrow was my legacy, but it was theirs now, too. As I grew older, I spent more time reflecting. The map wasn't just about streets, it was about belief. I'd believed in something impossible, and it happened. I'd walk Starlight Avenue, now lined with shops and lights. Each step reminded me of that boy with a pencil. I didn't know how my map had worked, but it had. Maybe it was luck, or maybe it was something more. I'd sit by the fountain, sketching in my notebook again. I drew new cities, new dreams, though I knew they'd stay on paper. Harrow was enough, my one miracle. I hoped others would find their own. The map taught me that dreams could outlive you. People kept asking how I did it, how a boy's map became real. I never had a good answer. I just drew what I saw in my head, I'd say. Some called it prophecy, others coincidence. I didn't care for labels, it was my truth. The streets were there, real and solid, proof of something I couldn't explain. I'd look at my map in the museum, its lines still clear despite the years. It felt like a friend, a piece of me that never aged. I'd talk to it sometimes, whispering thanks. Harrow thrived because of it, and I was grateful. My life felt complete, tied to those streets. I didn't need to understand the how, just the what. In my final years, I'd sit under a new oak tree, planted in the town square. I'd watch people pass, living in the city I dreamed. My grandchildren brought their own kids to see me, and I'd tell them the story. The map was famous now, a symbol of possibility. I'd hold my great-grandchildren's hands and point to the streets. "I drew those," I'd say, and they'd gasp. I wanted them to know they could dream too. My map wasn't magic, it was persistence, imagination, a refusal to give up. I'd close my eyes and see that boy from 1879, still sketching. He was still in me, and I was proud of him. Harrow was his gift to the world. The world changed around Harrow, but my streets held strong. By the 1930s, cars replaced carriages, and electric lights lit Starlight Avenue. I was frail now, but I'd still walk the city. People stopped to shake my hand, calling me a legend. I'd blush and wave them off. I was just Elias. My map was in history books now, studied by planners and dreamers. I didn't read them. I didn't need to. The real story was in Harrow streets, in the lives built there. My great-grandchildren drew their own maps, inspired by mine. I'd look at their sketches and see my own childhood. The cycle continued, and that was enough. My map had sparked something bigger than me. One day, a filmmaker came to Harrow, wanting to tell my story. He sat with me for hours, listening to every detail. I told him about the oak tree, the surveyor, the railroad. He called it a miracle of imagination. I didn't argue, but I didn't agree either. It was just my life, nothing more. He filmed the streets, the fountain, the map in the museum. The movie came out years later, after I was gone. My family told me it moved people, made them believe in dreams. I was glad, but I didn't need a film. Harrow was my proof, my story written in stone and brick. I hoped it would inspire others to draw their own maps. I started writing a journal in my last years, for my family. I wrote about 1879, the map, and what it meant to me. I wanted them to know it wasn't about fame or magic. It was about seeing something no one else could and holding on to it. I wrote about Clara, the surveyor, the mayor, everyone who shaped the journey. My hand shook as I wrote, but I kept going. The journal was my final gift, a way to pass the map's lesson on. I told my great-grandchildren to keep dreaming, no matter what. Your map is out there, I wrote. I hoped they'd find it, like I did. The journal was left with my map, in the museum. Harrow kept growing, even as I slowed down. New neighborhoods sprouted, following my old lines. I'd hear people talk about Elias's map like it was a myth. I didn't mind, it was bigger than me now. I'd sit in the square, watching the fountain's water dance. It reminded me of the first line I drew, all those years ago. I felt peace, knowing my dream had lasted. My great-grandchildren visited often, bringing sketches to show me. I'd smile and tell them to keep going. The world needed more dreamers, more maps. I wasn't special, just a boy who believed. That belief built a city, and I was content. One evening, I walked Starlight Avenue for the last time. The lights glowed, and the air was warm. I felt Clara beside me, though she was long gone. I saw that boy from 1879, sketching under the oak tree. He looked up and smiled, like he knew. I smiled back, my heart full. The map had done its work, and so had I. I sat by the fountain, watching the city live. My streets were alive with people, laughter, life. I didn't need to understand how it happened. It was enough that it did. I closed my eyes, feeling the breeze, knowing I'd left something behind. Harrow was my map, my dream, my home. The museum added a plaque next to my map after I passed. It told the story of 1879, of a boy who dreamed a city. My family visited it often, they told me. They'd stand there, reading the words, feeling proud. The map was fragile now, but its legacy wasn't. Harrow streets still follow my lines, even as the world modernized. New generations walk them, not knowing my name. That was okay. I never wanted fame. I wanted a city, and I got it. My great-grandchildren kept my journal, sharing it with their kids. The story lived on, carried by those who believed. The map was proof that dreams could build something real. Years later, urban planners studied Harrow's layout. They marveled at how a boy's map worked so well. My streets handled growth, traffic, life, better than some modern designs. They wrote papers, gave lectures, called it a phenomenon. I wasn't there to hear it, but my family told me. They said Harrow was a model for other cities. I'd laugh if I could, me, a farmer's son, a model for anything. But I was proud in my quiet way. The map wasn't just lines. It was a vision that lasted. It showed what imagination could do. I hoped it would keep inspiring, long after I was gone. Harrow was my mark, and it was enough. The oak tree in the town square grew tall, shading the fountain. People sat under it, like I did in 1879. They didn't know my story, but they lived in it. My great-grandchildren became teachers, artists, dreamers. They carried my lesson, believe in your vision. Harrow thrived, a city built on a boy's dream. The map stayed in the museum, a reminder of what's possible. Visitors came, drawn by the story. They'd leave with hope, maybe sketching their own maps. I wasn't there, but I felt it somehow. My dream had rippled outward, touching lives I'd never know. That was the real magic, not the map, but what it sparked. In time, Harrow became a symbol of imagination. Schools taught my story, urging kids to dream big. My map was copied, studied, celebrated. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I'd made mistakes in 1879, smudged lines and crooked streets. Yet those imperfections built a city. I hope kids saw that. Your dreams don't need to be perfect, just true. My family kept my journal, reading it to new generations. They'd walk Starlight Avenue, pointing out my streets. Your great-great-grandfather did this, they'd say. I wasn't there, but I felt their pride. The map was a bridge between my time and theirs. It was my gift, my legacy. Now, as you hear this story, I hope you see what I did. A boy's dream, a simple map, became a city. Harrow lives because I believed in something bigger. You have a map inside you, too. Maybe not on paper, but in your heart. Draw it, chase it, don't let it fade. My streets took decades to appear, but they did. Yours can, too. Walk Harrow streets if you can. See what a dream can do. Then start your own. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of dreams that change the world. Let's keep imagining together. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Join us for more tales of dreams that shape reality. Your map is waiting. Let's find it together.